What's going on, everybody? You have Tone here, coach of the newly installed Miami Palafins, bringing you guys my Week 1 team builder for the inaugural season of the BBR D-League, where we kick off the season against the Colombus Cobalions, coached by TRo. Be sure to check out his side of our battle. This will be going up on Sundays, and the battle itself will be happening the day after on Monday, so be sure to check them out. Check out all the other coaches taking part in the BBR D-League season number 1. If you guys missed my draft analysis, there will be a link to the description so you can see what I drafted, why I drafted it, but for the most part, you can see the matchup on your screen. My team is to the left, and my opponent's team is to the right, and just looking at it from a glance, I will have to admit that I feel as though T-Ro's team, perhaps to me at the very least, feels like the best team in the entirety of the D-League, just because you just take a look at the Pokemon he was able to snag up. He has his Roaring Moon, that's one thing, and then he has to pair with that the Palafin, and then he snagged up Annihilate and Iron Moth and Hatterene. Like, those first 5 Pokemon by itself is just so stupidly good. And it's crazy to think how he was able to get that. And then even the other stuff, he got his Hazard Control with the Donphan, another he got the Tinkaton for the Steel type and the Ice Resist and all that stuff, and then even the lower tier stuff like Arboliva. Someone can hinder his Donphan, but it's not the end of the world for that. And then even having the fast mon like the Frostlass and even the Squawkabilly could be a bit of a nuisance in certain matchups, and even down to the Pikachu if you don't prepare for that, he could bring Pikachu and probably wallop somebody with that. Hopefully that won't be me. I'm not really that concerned about Pikachu, but I did try my best to prepare for any combination of 6 Pokemon that TRo decides to bring in this battle. In terms of what I expect him to bring, or what I predict him to bring, I do feel that from my perspective, the first 5 Pokemon are definitely coming. The Roaring Moon, the Palafin, Annihilate, the Iron Moth, and the Hatterene are like almost pretty much locked for me. The 6 Mon, I feel, is going to be the toss-up on whether or not he decides to bring the Donphan or whether or not he decides to bring the Tinkaton. That just feels like the best 6 Pokemon he could bring for me against my team in this matchup, because I know doggone well I feel like he has one of those teams that's definitely looking to make sure that he does not get overwhelmed or get swept by ESPATHRAJ. I do also want to mention his Terra captain is also the Roaring Moon, which has the option to be Terra Dark or Terra Flying, and just for a refresher, my Terra captain is the ESPATHRAJ with the ability to be either Terra Psychic or Terra Fighting. But as I mentioned, I feel like the first 5 Pokemon plus either Donphan or Tinkaton is the best combination to bring against my team of 6. I just feel like they all have necessary roles that he needs to ensure he has the best ways of beating my team. That isn't to say that the matchup is unwinnable. I did try my best to try to make the best sets possible. I did come up with at least one kind of out there set, which hopefully will work. It just depends on the situation and if I can get the timing down correctly. But with that being said, jumping into what I did end up building for this matchup. First off, we do have good old-fashioned Dragapult with the choice specs: Shadow Ball, Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, or U-Turn. Yes, he does have 2 normal types and a Roaring Moon, but regardless, I'm not expecting him to bring either of his normal types, so even if he goes hard Roaring Moon on my Dragapult, I'm still getting chip on the Roaring Moon unless he is like some sort of DD Roost set, and if he's DD Roost, he's missing coverage. But at the same time, though, if he is DD, I really don't feel like he needs that much coverage. It just basically comes down to what Terra he is. Like Dark plus Flying hits essentially my entire team neutrally. Like, I don't really have the best of responses to Roaring Moon. Yes, I do have a Dash Bun, but Dash Bun is too passive to the point where it can actually end up being setup fodder for the Roaring Moon, especially if it's Terra Flying with DD, as Play Rough does nothing, Body Press is resisted. So yeah, I really couldn't justify bringing Dash Bun in this matchup, and even so, he does have that Iron Moth the Palafin and the Annihilate can easily wear that thing down to the point where I cannot justify bringing it in this matchup. But other than that, though, back to Dragapult, this is just my main way of trying to do as much damage to his team from a wall breaking perspective. Like I said, Shadow Ball, if he does not bring either normal type, it's free. I get Chip on Moon, don't really care about anything else. Draco Meteor just to get damage on something. I'm going to be very hesitant to click Draco Meteor in the face of 2 fairy types, so that will have to be put on the back burner until those things are gone. Fire Blast specifically there to do more damage to the Tinkaton, and of course U-turn for momentum purposes. Max special attack to hit as hard as possible with enough speed to guarantee outspeed the Roaring Moon, and then the rest I just threw into HP with the added bulk. So that is one of my 2 breakers that I'll be showcasing. Next up is the Revenge Killer of the team in my Choice Scarf MEOWSCARADA with Flower Trick, Knockoff, Thunder Punch, and U-turn. This is my means of at the very least checking a +1 Roaring Moon. If he Terra Darks and he's +1, I have U-turn to chip that thing down. If he's Terra Flying, I have Thunder Punch to chip that thing down. There's also the fact that if he Terra Darks, he's no longer part Dragon, which means that Flower Trick won't be resisted against the Moon. So if he is in range of dying, being taken out by Flower Trick, I will click that move. And of course U-turn just here for momentum. This is my way of ensuring that +1 Roaring Moon doesn't get out of hand. You do see I am Overgrow on my MEOWSCARADA as opposed to Protein. This is just to ensure that if I'm forced to click a move that's not Flower Trick, this is also a way of soft checking the Palafin, as the 28 defense lets me guaranteed live 2 Adamant. I can take 2 Adamant Jet Punches from a Choice Banded Palafin from full. So at the very least, I can, if I'm able to take the hit and basically trade Palafin for, if I take Chip in exchange for getting rid of Palafin, I will take that. So that's pretty much the idea with the defense investment, and then everything else, speed for Moon, and then the rest is just max attack. Nothing much else to say in that regard. Then we have my second breaker of the team in a Choice Banded SCIZOR with U-turn, Bullet Punch, Quick Attack, and Sword Stance. Yes, I am running Sword Stance on a Choice Band set, and the only reason why, well, there's technically 2 reasons why I have Sword Stance as this 4th move. I originally was thinking about putting Trailblaze on SCIZOR. It does do more damage to Donphan, and does give me a speed boost on top of that, so I have the ability to potentially outspeed Palafin, but at the same time, being locked into a grass move isn't necessarily the best thing to be locked into, especially when there's still stuff I cannot outspeed unless I put a crap ton of speed investment into my SCIZOR, and I would like the bulk to at the very least take 1 hit from the Roaring Moon if it does get out of hand. The second reason for being Sword Stance is because of the fact that his potential Stealth Rockers bar the Annihilate do have access to Knockoff. So on the off chance he decides to try to get rid of my item between the Tinkaton or the Donphan, I can go hard into my SCIZOR. He clicks Knockoff, he gets rid of my Choice Band, which allows me to go for Sword Stance the turn afterwards, and I'd be able to do even more damage between Bullet Punch and Quick Attack, which Quick Attack is specifically there to do damage, more damage to the Iron Moth, as it does resist my Dual Stab. At the very least, chip down the Palafin a little bit better than Bullet Punch will let me do. And there wasn't any specific benchmarks I needed to hit in terms of SCIZOR because of the speed tiers on my team, and specifically on T-Row's team. Everything on T-Row's team is either faster than SCIZOR or slower than SCIZOR. There is really no in-between in this specific matchup. So, he has 2 slow Pokemon with the Arboliva and the Hatterene, then he has Donphan at base 50 speed, and then after that, the next fastest Pokemon after the Donphan, it goes all the way to Pikachu at 90. So yeah, the speed gap is pretty much there. It's pretty much wide enough to the point where I don't need to even worry about trying to outspeed anything. The 4 speed is basically only there as a filler, to potentially catch Don fan maybe trying to speed creep uninvested Scizor, so go for that. But again, it's mostly a filler EV at this point. It didn't really do much else in this situation, and I just wanted to have that way of revenge killing stuff like Roaring Moon if I do end up losing my MEOWSCARADA. So that is my Scizor. Now moving on to the primary win con of the team, and that of course is going to be the ESPATHRAJ, with a weird set, I do admit. So you see the moveset: Lumina Crash, Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, Reflect, and Weakness Policy with TERA Psychic. So this set, so basically the idea with this set was, looking at the matchup, there wasn't really a situation where I could legitimately sit there and try to like Calm Mind and Roost and all that stuff, because the team that he ended up drafting just forces too much offensive pressure on ESPATHRAJ to put myself in a situation to where I could like successfully make that sort of set work. Like, there was no way for me to Calm Mind, Roost, and then still try to boost myself, and then still would be like pressure offensively by like the Moon, the Roaring Moon, the Palafin, the Annihilate, stuff like that. And there's also the option of the Hatterene being Trick Room, which would just screw me over anyway. So instead of going through the mindset of trying to set up in front of an offensive team that I really cannot set up in front of, I decided to make the game plan: if I can't set up in front of my opponent, I'll have my opponent help me set up, and that explains the weakness policy. So the idea is, with the Reflect Up, I can take the super effective Crunch from the Roaring Moon, I can take the super effective Rage Fist from the Annihilate, activate my weakness policy, and then if I get enough speed boost, I can essentially go ham on his entire team. And with the Reflect Up, it guarantees that I can at least take those hits. I can take Banded, Jet Punches, and Wave Crashes, whatever, from the Palafin. I can take Rage Fist from the Annihilate. I can take a Crunch from the Roaring Moon with the Reflect Up, activate my weakness policy, and then just go to town with this ESPATHRAJ set, which explains the EVs. I went max defense first just to make sure I had as much physical bulk as possible. And then with the 132 HP with the defense investment, I can guarantee take a Crunch from the Roaring Moon after Stealth Rock. And then the rest is basically just filler with 124, which is basically leftover EVs. I didn't really need anything else to put in that slot. I think it hit like a benchmark of being able to I'm trying to think of the number specifically, but I think it was enough to like guarantee Oko stuff like Iron Moth with Lumina Crash. I think in nearly Oko's, even Hatterene with Shadow Ball, stuff like that. So I don't remember the number off the top of my head. For the most part, I know like the 4 speed lets me outspeed, like I outspeed like Roaring Moon, and then after a second speed boost, I would outspeed like Scarf Annihilate, I believe. I may be wrong in those speed tiers, but it's something like that, to the point where I really didn't need the speed investment because I'm trying to boost my speed anyway through speed boost. So I didn't want to outspeed anything initially. Like, I could have outsped Annihilate if I really wanted to, but I didn't want to miss out on any other KOs I would have potentially got at +2 with after my weakest policy activates. And then of course with TERA Psychic, I boost the power of Lumina Crash even more. Plus with the fact that Lumina Crash always drops my opponent's special defense, they stuff like Calm Mind Hatterene cannot like set up alongside me, since I will always drop its special defense faster than it can get boost its special defense. So that's the mindset with this ESPATHRAJ set, and hopefully it can do some work in this battle. So next up, back to more of a defensive backbone of sorts. This is my Salazzle, my sort of Iron Moth check, and I used the word check very loosely. So as you can see, my set is double stab and double status. Now, I really didn't want to. This was a really tough set to like come up with, because originally I wanted to be sub-toxic. So at the very least, I could sub down on, I can toxic protect stall stuff like Iron Moth. And the fact that I have Salazzle, it would at the very least force the Iron Moth to bring a move like Psychic, since Salazzle resists its dual stab, and of course vice versa. So I do have to be very cautious of, I do have to at the very least scout if the Iron Moth wants to bring Psychic. Like, the idea of Iron Moth in general, I don't really know what kind of set he could be. Like, he could just be dual stab and then have Psychic for Salazzle, Energy Ball to hit my Gastrodon and my Garganacl, or at the very least, the other reason why I have Salazzle on this team was on the off chance he decides to bring Toxic Spikes on the Iron Moth, I have my Grounded Poison to soak up to absorb the Toxic Spikes and prevent my ESPATHRAJ from being put on a timer, and pretty much everything else on my team from being put on a timer. So yeah. And then as for the rest of the moves, just Toxic and Will-O-Wisp, Toxic to, at the very least, Toxic to Iron Moth since I am Corrosion, and then Will-O-Wisp to potentially burn his physical attackers, the Annihilate, the Palafin if for some reason he decides to hard switch into it, as well as the Roaring Moon. And I felt like I needed to put Sludge Bomb because Sub-Toxic Protect Flamethrower, I was going to eventually lose 1v1 to Iron Moth, and I wanted Sludge Bomb because I did not want to become setup fodder for a potential Calm Mind Hatterene. So I felt like I needed both of my stabs, and I could have also been Protect over Wisp, but the option of crippling his physical attackers just felt too good to pass up. And then Air Balloon was there to ensure that if he brought the Donphan, I can freely switch it in and click Earthquake. It may cost me my Salazzle by potentially burning the Donphan, but at the same time though, a crippled Donphan does make it easier to try to set up with my ESPATHRAJ. So, and on top of that, I do have MEOWSCARADA that can also revenge that thing as well with Flower Trick. So it's not the end of the world if I lose my Salazzle in that regard. So yeah, nothing much to say about that. Just a bulky set, max HP with enough speed to outspeed his Frostlass and the Iron Moth, and the rest is just putting the special attack to hit a little bit harder with my dual stab. And then lastly is my Gastrodon with Stealth Rock, Recover, Earthquake, and Ice Beam. My pretty mandatory response to Palafin, although I used the word mandatory loosely because nothing on my team can really take on Palafin in a 1v1 situation. Even Gastrodon in and of itself, it may be immune to the Water Stab, but his other coverage options like Drain Punch and whatnot are still a nuisance to deal with. So the fact that I do have my water immunity means nothing in the face of a Palafin, so I'm still fearing the Palafin very, very much. As for the rest of the investment, I have Earthquake over Earth Power because it does let me deal... I do deal more damage to Iron Moth. I guarantee would knock out the Iron Moth as opposed to not risking the Iron Moth being like Spadef or just max HP. I can hit it on its lower defense stat and take out that thing. And as for the rest of the investment, I'm just trying to be as physically bulky as possible. The 20 special attack EVs with the Quiet Nature is enough to guarantee to a KO a max HP Donphan with Ice Beam, and the rest is just putting the physical defense as I mentioned. So yeah, with that being said, that is the team. Am I confident enough with this build? I want to say I am, but at the same time though, I do feel like there are some stuff I am worried about. Like I did mention, despite my team, I still feel like this team is fairly weak to Palafin. Like, even though I have, like I said, even with the water immunity, I have nothing else really likes taking on the Palafin. So it's less so that I'm worried about the moon, and more so that Palafin could really do a number on my team if I am not careful. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but regardless, that is the team builder for this week. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. The battle, like I said, will be going up on Monday, and every Monday will be a battle for BBR D-League Season number 1. Hope you guys are looking forward to the match as well as I am. Like I said, and be sure to check out TRowe and all the other coaches taking part in BBR D-League Season number 1. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next time, this is Tone, signing out for now. Peace out.